Located at the very edge of Olympus, the forge of Hephaestus stood proud and active. Waves of divine energy expelled from its gigantic chimneys. From the master bolt to Apollo's divine bow, all weapons on Olympus were repaired and maintained in the forge. Servants of Hephaestus would constantly mine celestial bronze, imperial gold, and divine silver from Mount Olympus and deliver the ores to their lord. As the most skilled son of Hera, the god of smiths armed the gods with the most advanced arsenal in existence. "Didn't I tell you to not touch anything?" The young god turned around at the gruff voice and grinned sheepishly at his older brother, trying but failing to hide the shattered piece of glass behind him. The only part of the beautifully crafted glass eagle still intact was the head, and it was lying quite inelegantly on the soot-stained ground of the forge of Olympus. Naruto couldn't help but cringe at the unsightly remains of his father's sacred animal and scratched the back of his head as his brother stared down at him. "Sorry, Heppy, I didn't mean to break it." The god of smiths sighed and crossed his arms at his little brother. "It's all right, I'll fix it later for father." He snapped his fingers and the broken glass vanished, teleported to his other forge. "But more importantly, what are you doing here? Our lesson isn't until next week and you're supposed to be learning from Apollo right now." Naruto grinned. "Nyakin is busy this today, he went to California to visit an old flame, whatever that means." Hephaestus groaned and palmed his face. "That sunspot is such an idiot at times." "That's what Artie says," replied Naruto with a giggle. The older son of Hera smiled down at his brother. "So what are you doing here? Do you want to have your lesson now?" The blonde clapped his hands together and stared up at his brother pleadingly, doing his puppy dog face that succeeded in convincing Athena to give him a golden spear. "Can I please have the sword you made for me?" The boy tugged on his brother's sleeve. "I'm getting a little tired of training with my spear. So I want to try learning to use a sword." Naruto grinned sheepishly. "Please, Heppy." The smith god sighed before he chuckled. "Fine, just stop with that face." He ruffled his little brother's hair. "Follow me to the display room." Naruto jumped in joy and hugged his brother around the waist. "Thank you, Heppy." Located right next to the soot-stained forges with great distinction was the display room, which was a misnomer if Athena had anything so say about it. It stood taller than the chimney of the forges and had a few dozen grand Greek columns supporting its meticulously chiseled roof, a grand family portrait of the Olympians showcased upon it. A wide row of stairs welcomed all gods and goddesses upon entry and it led into a large open room with long rows of showcases. Through transparent glass displays, hundreds of age-old weapons, shields and armor decorated the room as a hall of fame, and Hephaestus stood proudly in the middle of his greatest achievements. The smith god led his odd brother to the very back of the display room. A small display case that stood shorter than the rest was all that Naruto could see, and his grin grew brighter with each passing second. His brother had promised to forge him his own sword, and he had been waiting to see it for a long while. Athena had insisted that Naruto should complete his training with his spear and shield before starting his blades, but Hephaestus deemed Naruto ready. "Wow, is this it?" The elder son of Hera smiled. "Yes, all in this display case." Naruto's eyes gleamed at the shiny glass display, but he didn't see any swords. Placed simply on a small rack were two rings, one of them gold and one of them silver. Hephaestus snapped his fingers and the display opened, and Naruto grinned as his brother reached in for the rings. "I made you two swords." "Two, really?" asked the boy as he bounced up and down excitedly. "Here, put the silver ring on your right thumb and the golden ring on your left." Naruto did as he was told and found that the rings were perfect fits. "I designed these rings to fit your hands as you grow, and they are designed to be simple to carry and able to hide in plain sight." Naruto grinned as he stared at his thumbs. "They retract and expand on your command. All you have to do is send a surge of your power into each of them to activate them." The smith god smirked and crossed his arms proudly, give the silver ring a light surge of power. A surge of godly wind filled the silver ring, and it transformed instantly. It was a curved sword with a wide blade, about 5 inches wide. It was 24 inches in length, similar to a gladius, but the most amazing factor about it was that it was extremely thin, so thin that the blade was transparent. It illuminated a brilliant silvery white light and radiated power. It made Naruto shiver as he held it tightly in his hand. And it was very light, almost as weightless as a feather. The hilt was beautifully crafted and fit perfectly in Naruto's hand, shining godly silver. Hephaestus smiled. I named it blind, signifying its blinding speed and lethality. It is made purely out of divine silver, the rarest of the godly metals found on Mount Olympus. I forged it with my personal flames and completed it with the help of Apollo. We used the heat from his sun chariot to add the finishing touches. The blade itself is 1 micrometer thin, 1/1000th of a millimeter. It is by far the lightest and sharpest blade I have ever made. It weighs less than 1 kilogram and can slice through most, if not all materials in existence, and if you channel your godly wind into the blade, it might actually be the sharpest blade in existence. Naruto was in awe as he whirled the blade around, feeling how perfectly balanced it was. But don't think it's fragile. After my folding with such extreme heat and powerful energy, it can withstand the strongest attack from the heaviest warhammer bluntly, so if you want to shave Ares' head, this is the sword to use. In the name of our father, Hepi, this is amazing. He looked up at his brother with utter adoration. You're awesome. The look from his little brother was worth all the hard work. Now check out the other sword. Naruto smiled as bright as Apollo as he channeled some power into the golden ring, filling it with godly lightning. But instead of near weightlessness like blind, this one was extremely heavy and he nearly dropped it. The god of the four winds had to retract blind and use both hands to support the weight, but regardless, it was a sight to behold. It had a long hilt, at least a foot long, and it was a beautiful blend of gold and bronze. Then there was the blade. It was at least 4 feet long. It had no edge. It was a thorny blade that spiraled upward in a rounded fashion, and it ended at a sharp point that shone like a diamond. This is Storm Ruler, a double-handed sword made from the finest celestial bronze and imperial gold in my possession. It is the opposite of blind. It weighs 40 pounds and will become heavier as it grows to match your muscle mass. It's not nearly as powerful as Father's Master Bolt, but I designed it to enhance your lightning and wind powers. Hephaestus ran his fingers over the thorny spirals of the blade and smiled. These rounded edges are designed to collect the power you channel into the hilt and amplify it exponentially. This sword can split the sky and light the night asunder with wind and lightning. Naruto's jaw dropped at the pure awesomeness of his new weapons. You will need to adjust between using such differently weighted blades. So I recommend you dedicate one hand to each sword. Your right hand is more controlled and defined, so you should dedicate it to blind. Storm Ruler requires much less physical control, so you can use your left, but you will need to train your physical strength in order to use it properly. Naruto transformed the blade back to its ring from, "Thank you so much, Hepi." He grinned and wrapped his arms around his fuller brother's waist. "You're the best big brother ever." The smith god silently taunted Apollo and Hermes, and hugged his brother back. "Anything for you, little brother." He patted his spiky blonde hair. "Why don't you go take them for a spin?" The boy nodded excitedly. "Cool, I'll go right now." "I love you, Hepi." With that, Naruto flew out of the display room, leaving a chuckling Hephaestus looking at the retreating ball of energy. The smith god smiled softly to himself, proud that he made his little brother so happy. Top that, Apollo and Hermes. Okay, I have to start the first step of my plan. The young god flew into the temple of Hermes, one of his favorite places to visit on Olympus. Over the years Naruto had gotten familiar with one of his closest brother's schedule, and since it was Sunday, his brother should be in his temple taking a short break. Soon the familiar sight of the giant caduceus that served as a beacon of the temple of Hermes. And Naruto briefly wondered what would happen if the giant snakes of the enlarged version of the caduceus could come to life. A giant George and Martha would be funny to see. Ignoring the giant conveyor belt that ran from inside the temple, Naruto flew inside. He passed by rows of statues of Hermes, all dedicated to his popular brother from all thieves, travelers, or even salesmen from every era. Though it was a little weird that his brother ended the line of statues of a mannequin wearing a Flash costume. Hermes. Still wearing his Olympia Parcel Services uniform, Hermes jolted up from his couch, looking around frantically. His sandy blonde hair was still messy and was wearing a pillow head style, and his eyes looked so tired they made Naruto feel a little sleepy. The god of travelers finally noticed his little brother hovering above him and gave him an exhausted wave before slumping back down on his couch. "Come back in a few hours, Naru," muttered Hermes, "Big bro needs his rest." Naruto landed on the ground and started to shake his brother's arm. "Come on, Hermes, I need your help." Hermes groaned and covered his eyes with his other arm. "Please, this is serious. Belle came to me for help and I need you to help me so I can help her." The god started to snore and Naruto shook his arm harder. "Just give me half an hour. After all, you can sleep as much as you want." Hermes groaned again and sat up on his couch. "Naru, why don't you go ask Apollo to help you?" "Because I know you're better at traveling." Naruto grinned and hopped up and down as he patted his brother's knees. "I need to go to." He paused to look down at a piece of paper Bologna gave him. "San Juan, Puerto Rico." Naruto nodded after he confirmed he said the place's name correctly. "I've already waited a few days and I really need to go there now." "Why in Uncle Hades do you need to go to Puerto Rico?" Hermes rubbed his eyes as he held down Naruto's shoulder with one hand, stopping his hopping. "Belle has 2 daughters there that need help with their dad, and she asked me to go handle the situation." Naruto grinned proudly. "This will be my first divine intervention. I'm the god of fatherhood and family, so this is fully inside my domain." He smiled at his brother. "I know you're tired, but please help me out this one time." Naruto clapped his hands together and conjured a cup in his hands. "Here, this is a drink mommy makes to drink when she's tired." Hermes chuckled at the dark roast and patted his brother's head. "Fine, Naru, I'll take you there." The god laughed as his brother hugged him around the neck and stood up. "I have a package to take there tomorrow anyway, so I guess I'll just go there today." He groaned again as he stretched out the kinks in his back. He really shouldn't have drank so much with Apollo the night before he threw Naruto onto his shoulders. Smiling as his kid brother laughed, "To the Ops Mobile." Naruto had seen Hermes' delivery truck before, but he'd never been on it. It didn't go nearly as fast as Apollo's soul, but it was still really cool for Naruto. In order to fool the mortals, Hermes had manipulated the mist and made Ops appear as UPS, which was the original truck that spawned thousands in the mortal world. Naruto's brother operated nearly all postal services in the world and had total control over all of them. "Have you been to that part of the world before?" Naruto nodded. "Yes, Nyakin brought me there for lunch last year, but we didn't really stay to look around." Hermes grinned. "Well, let Big Brother help you through this quest." Atlantis, Palace of Poseidon. "Naruto, come sit down." Naruto waved at his mother as he stared up at a very large map that served as a gargantuan wall of his uncle's palace. It showed all major current in all bodies of water in the world and showed, in real time, the conditions and placements of all things in water. The young god recognized several larger islands, like Great Britain and Japan, on the map and was fascinated at all the information the map provided. It showed the amount of marine life currently living around the islands, even sea monsters, and it showed the amount of mermen located in the area that served as scouts for his uncle. Hera sighed at her distracted son, oblivious to the fact that half of Naruto's presence was currently flying with Hermes in his delivery truck. She had brought her son to their usual ladies' afternoon tea, located under the sea instead of the main hearth, but the young god was too busy with staring at the map of Poseidon's domain. The queen couldn't help but wonder why her son found it so interesting. In the last 10 times they visited Atlantis, Naruto just ignored the map. Amphitrite smiled at her nephew. What's Naruto looking at? Hera shrugged, I have no idea. Demeter giggled at her little nephew as she poured more tea for herself. I don't know what he's looking at, but he sure makes pretty good cookies. She smiled at her older sister, who smiled and nodded. He almost makes it as good as you do, sister. He sure does, chirped a happy Artemis. I brought some back to my hunters last time and they devoured them. Someone lucky is going to grab him up as soon as he grows up, muttered Aphrodite with a small smile. He's just the perfect package. Hera gave the goddess of love a look, but she continued. Just think about it. He's going to be a powerful god given his domains and parentage. He's going to be quite the handsome hunk if he's anything like his brothers. He's the god of fatherhood and family, so he's guaranteed to be a great father and husband. She snacked on another cookie with a grin, and he's a great cook, too. Amphitrite sighed, if only his uncle is more like that. Demeter gave a small laugh, that's true, he will be quite the catch for some lucky girl out there. Yes, my son is great, but you will not mess with his love life, Aphrodite. The love goddess scoffed, oh please, if he's anything like any other god, he won't need my help to get girls. Hera scowled, look at your other sons. Ares has different girls every day and even someone like Hephaestus would have several demigod children every other year. Aphrodite winked, believe me, every god eventually becomes like that. Artemis crossed her arms, not if I can do anything about it. The huntress was a little annoyed that Athena wasn't with them. The wisdom goddess would never visit Poseidon's palace. I'm going to make sure he doesn't turn into a pig like every other man. Hera nodded, good girl. Demeter winked at Artemis, maybe you should marry him, Artemis. Aphrodite almost choked in laughter as Demeter smirked, he's a great catch and if you're his wife, you can keep him attached to a short leash. Artemis looked devastated, what in Hades, and Demeter? What? I think it's a great idea. Demeter looked over at her little sister, would you be against it, sis? Hera crossed her arms in thought, no, I would be quite for it. Artemis had always been one of the more tolerable stepdaughters of Hera. And the queen had appreciated the huntress' efforts to keep Naruto in line, so having her as her son's wife wouldn't be bad at all. Out of all the goddesses, I think you are the one most suitable for my boy. The huntress looked sick, this is just wrong. Hestia smiled warmly, I think you two would make a cute couple. Artemis looked at her favorite goddess in shock, I know you don't like men, but Naruto is going to be a great god. He will also be a great father, so he'll treat all your hunters very well. And I've already taught him to make all your favorite foods, so he can cook for you every night. Aphrodite was in titters, oh this is so perfect. Artemis glared at everyone at the table, you are all being ridiculous. She crossed her arms and shook her head, I love Naruto, but only as a big sister. Just like I did with Zeus, said Hera slyly with a smirk. Believe me, that will start to change after a few centuries. The Queen of Atlantis giggled, oh my, if you really do marry him, it'd be the biggest event of the last 10 millennia. Amphitrite gave the goddess of the moon a smile. I can already see the wedding ceremony. Alright, that's enough. Artemis was flaring her power. This topic is preposterous. I am not going to marry anyone. What are you talking about? The goddesses almost jumped out of their bones as Naruto suddenly reached for a cookie from next to his mother. Looking at his family with his big blue eyes as he munched on his snack. He looked up at Artemis, very intrigued. Who are you going to marry, Artie? His mother and aunts all started to laugh while his sister scowled, making Naruto look around with a very confused expression on his face. What is it? Hera kissed the top of her son's head and sat him down on her lap. We're talking about Artemis and if she should marry someone. The other goddesses all smirked as Artemis sighed. What do you think? Do you think she should marry someone? Yeah, of course, replied Naruto with a quick nod, reaching for another cookie. Everyone should get married and Artie is great. Aphrodite giggled and ruffled his hair. Really? Yep, chirped the boy as he snapped his fingers to conjure a glass of milk. She's one of the coolest goddesses and her hunters are very fun. He smiled at his sister, who looked a little flustered. And she has very pretty hair. She's the only one with red hair. Demeter laughed. Oh, you are so cute. She pinched his cheeks lightly, making him pout as he chewed his cookies. Amphitrite giggled happily, and he likes red hair. Hera smirked. So do you think Artemis would make a good wife for Yo Dash? The Queen of Olympus was swiftly cut off as Artemis snatched Naruto from her arms and stood up. Her usual proud expression looked very different with so much ichor rushing to her face, giving her a golden hue. No matter how much she glared at the others, especially Hera and Aphrodite, she couldn't look threatening. All the others just continued to giggle and laugh at her expense, and Naruto just looked around confused. That's enough. Artemis grunted as she stomped her feet. You are all going too far. Naruto giggled at the laughter of the others, glad that no one was suspecting anything. I hope we stay here until after dinner. I'm going to need more time in Puerto Rico. As long as mommy doesn't notice anything about my powers, it should be okay. He looked at his sister, who was still holding him in her arms. But why is Artie looking so gold? Naruto grinned as he stared out the windows and down at the gorgeous view of San Juan. The city was laid out like a small maze and he couldn't stop the excitement from bubbling up from his chest. This was the first time ever that he went out on his own without his mother or father knowing, and it felt pretty awesome. So let me get this straight, asked Hermes with one head on the wheel, his truck flying through the air swiftly. Bologna asked you to help with her daughter with their father, who is suffering from some kind of post-traumatic stress. She's afraid that he will harm the girls and wants you to help them. The boy nodded as he kept staring out the window. Yep, that's right. Hermes chuckled and rubbed his temples. Do you even know what post-traumatic stress is? Well, Thena taught me it a while back, but I don't really understand it. Naruto shrugged. It's some sickness and I guess it is bad for our nieces. The god of thieves chuckled. Naruto, our nieces are probably older than you. Hyla is older than me, but Reina is 1 year younger than me. Bologna had given her brother a full description of her daughters, and Naruto had been looking forward to meeting them. Hermes sighed at his brother. What I want to ask is, do you even know how to handle the situation? He glanced at the boy. You're still a child, little bro. These situations are very hard to handle properly, even for full-grown gods. These mortals are very different from us and you've never really interacted with any of them, so this is much more complicated than you think. Naruto looked at his brother in thought. Nodding at his words, these people are very fragile and weak and you have to be careful when interacting with them. A playful push from you will probably kill them. Naruto scratched the back of his head, so what should I do? In my experience, you have to be very subtle. Try to get to know the girls as friends before you try anything out of the ordinary. Hermes had to scratch his head, trying to not make it sound like he was teaching Naruto to pick up mortal women. In this case, try to find out if their father is going crazy and if he will actually harm them. If he does, I assume Bologna would want you to bring them to Camp Jupiter. I can't bring them there myself, can I? Isn't that against the rules? Hermes nodded, yes, but you can always conjure up a plane ticket for the two of them. I did that to help a couple of my kids a few years ago. The god shrugged, honestly, Bologna could do that on her own, but I guess our Roman selves are just much stricter. Okay, got it. Well, we're here in San Juan. Hermes smiled at his little brother, where to go next, Captain? Naruto grinned and rubbed his hands together, now I do a little trick Mommy and Auntie Hestia taught me. He closed his eyes and focused his energy, slowly slipping his consciousness into his domain of family. Instead of darkness, his closed eyes started to see shades of color in a vastness of black. Naruto could see a large shade of orange right next to him, the signature of his brother Hermes. This was the art of familial sensory, the ability that allowed Naruto, along with Hestia and Hera, to locate and pinpoint family members. Hermes was Naruto's half-brother, so his color was very apparent and bright. Someone like Hephaestus would appear in an even brighter color. And off to the distance, far below in the city, Naruto saw two shades of purple, indicating his relations to them, his nieces. Just drop me off somewhere down there, I can find my way to them, Hermes. Fine, but take this with you. Hermes gave his brother a small earbud and stuck it into his ear. Hep made this to communicate with me. It's a kind of phone. Just tap your ear once and it will automatically contact me, so if you need any help, but give me a call. Naruto opened the door with a grin, okay, thanks, Hermes. With that, the young god jumped from the car and flew down into the city. Hermes sighed and couldn't help but chuckle, in the name of order and chaos, don't let him embarrass himself. It had been eons since the god had witnessed a young god's first divine intervention. Especially one he actually cared about. In all honesty, he was very glad that he got to witness Naruto's first mission down in the mortal world. Knock, knock. What is Hades? Cried Hermes as he jolted, glaring at the passenger side window. He groaned at the laughter of his older brother, giving him the finger as he opened the door and sat down next to him. You almost scared me to Tartarus, Apollo. The sun god was still laughing, oh, that was awesome. He wiped some tears away and shook his head, you're still as squeamish as ever, Herm. What are you doing here? Asked the younger god, I'm in the middle of something here. Apollo scoffed, you think I would miss out on Lil Bro's first time? The sun god grinned and looked down from the window, I've foreseen this day for weeks and I planned my schedule around it. It's a good thing I went to visit Gretchen earlier today, if I wasted any more time I wouldn't have gotten the 5th round in. Only 5 rounds. Hermes scoffed, you're getting dull, brother. You shouldn't talk, fastest god on Olympus. The sun god chuckled at his fuming brother, I'm impressed at your delivery speed and all, but some packages should take a little more time. Deliver it too soon and you drive down your customer satisfaction. Hermes shook his head, you're a mean brother, you know that. Apollo chuckled, I love you, too, brother. The messenger god was still shaking his head, with all my hate, Apollo. Can the two of you shut up? Apollo and Hermes were shocked to see the navigator attached to the windshield sudden morph into a computer monitor, revealing their brother's face. I'm trying to keep track of where Naruto is, so be quiet. Hermes grunted, You hacked my car again, Heph. Oh, don't whine about it, I'm just trying to keep an eye of that little troublemaker. Hephaestus was tinkering with some gadget as he looked into the screen. I'm tracking the earbud you gave him and my satellite is zooming down on it. Apollo grinned, good, now you and Herm can see what's happening. He crossed his arms with a smirk, not all of us are all-seeing, after all. Oh, shut up, snapped the two other sons of Zeus. Naruto smiled at the beauty of San Juan, enjoying the sight of streets paved with gray bricks and lined with houses with bright blue and yellow walls. Not unlike Olympus, there were many people walking around, though none of them had the usual godly auras. And instead of nectar and ambrosia, Naruto caught scents of amazing foods, ones he hadn't tried before. He could already tell that Artie would enjoy some of the local cuisine and planned to learn to make them for her. Okay, where are the girls? He closed his eyes and the shades of purple appeared again. He was much closer than he had thought and landed on the nearest rooftop. The white sandy tiles felt warm through his shoes and the black railings were hot on his hands, but he didn't really care. He looked down from the roof and found himself looking at a restaurant named El Jibarito. It looked very nice with a coat of bright turquoise paint with white-edged arches as the welcoming. But his attention was mainly focused on the back gate, where two girls were peeking through. The one of the left was much taller than the other, clearly Hyla. From where he was, Naruto noticed that she looked a lot like Bellona. They had the same black hair and piercing black eyes. The shorter girl, Reina, looked a lot like her sister and mother, though she had softer features and looked very pretty with her bright and giddy smile. They were both hunched down and were trying to reach for something behind the gate, but Naruto couldn't see what it was. But suddenly, Naruto saw something that made him shiver. It was a very large hound, a hellhound. It was the size of a semi-truck and was slowly sniffing as it stomped its way through the street. It clearly caught the scent of the two demigoddesses and decided to have them as an afternoon snack. Naruto had never seen a hellhound before, though he had read that his uncle Hades controlled them. But no matter, if it wanted to harm his nieces, he wasn't going to let it live. Naruto grinned, let's take blind for a spin. The young god increased his deeply suppressed power a little and summoned blind, marveling at its beauty and magnificence with a smirk. Excited, he jumped from the roof and lowered himself directly in front of the hound. The dog stared right at him for a second, but soon it started to shake and back away in fear, finally noticing the presence of a powerful god. It was far too slow and late, and Naruto was already above him with blind raised. The god of fatherhood harnessed a small hint of his wind powers into the blade and slashed down, seeing the blade slice vertically through the hound. Hephaestus was not joking at all. Through the entire attack, Naruto never even felt his blade make contact with the monster. Soon the hound stopped shaking and was split open in half, each of his sides falling to the ground. But to Naruto's ever shock, his simple slash not only penetrated the skin of the hound, but also the street. There was a large scar upon the gray paved road, stretching to the very end of the street. He was glad no one was walking in the middle of the street, otherwise they would have been sliced in half. Wow, I love you, Heppy. Naruto grinned at his shiny blade as he landed on the ground, the hound dissolving into a pile of golden dust. But then he felt some eyes on him. He looked to the side and his electric blue met two pairs of piercing black. Hello there. Hyla and Reina were staring at the boy and the blade in his hand in shock. Apollo was laughing his ass off in the ops truck. The look on his brother's face was priceless and he was so happy they recorded all of it with Hephaestus' satellite. He had a feeling that it would make a brilliance home video in a few years when Naruto was older. Hermes palmed his face and groaned, "Way to be subtle, Naruto." Hephaestus shrugged, "At least blind works very well." The sun god was still chuckling at the sight of his brother and the two gawking girls. This is going to be a classic home video.